You are listening to the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast, episode 45. This week on the show, we're talking budget waterfowl hunting. Dan and I will share some tips with you on how we manage to save a little money as we hunt waterfowl throughout the year. All right, welcome everyone to this, the 45th episode of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast. We're your on-demand audio source for all things waterfowl and waterfowl hunting. You can check out HP Outdoors at hpoutdoors.com, as well as all of those various social media platforms. You can check us out on iTunes, Stitcher, a bunch of the other podcast centers, all that good stuff. If you'd like to chat with us, you can do so. Shoot us an email at info@hpoutdoors.com. You can also hit us up on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We've got a listeners group on Facebook, the HP Outdoors Podcast, Waterfowl Podcast listeners group, where a bunch of guys of the show are in there talking with us every day about different things. So feel free to join us in there if you're so inclined. Joining me this week, as he always does, Dan Harushka. Dan, what's new, man?
Not too much. Episode 45. It seems like we just started this, and we're getting up there already. So not too much. We got some colder weather coming in, and a lot of birds around. But like you've been making fun of me the last couple weeks. I've have a couple bucks showing up on camera, and I'm just trying to. I don't know why, but I just have an itch to let an arrow fly. So I think tomorrow I'm going to stay out of the cut corn that has some birds in it and try and get some antlers on the ground.
Yeah, I keep waiting for the Dan Harushka deer hunting podcast to come out. I see these pictures of like elevated 2 Sitka camo and new lone wolf tree stands showing up. I mean, and then, you're telling me you can't hunt divers because you don't have diver decoys, and I just can't figure it out. So hopefully you get this out of your system so we can get back to what's important.
I'm not buying divers just so that makes you come up and we can hunt together and you can show me the ropes there.
Don't even get me started. Don't get me started with all of that. Anyway, this week we've got a really great show lined up for you. We're going to cover a little bit of waterfowl news, talk a Ask HP question of the week. And really the big segment that we're going to cover this week is budget waterfowl hunting. And I think this is one that's going to resonate with a lot of people, but, we're going to talk a little bit about how you can save some money getting, your waterfowl gear and waterfowl hunting and all that stuff. So, really excited to get into that. And, I don't know, Dan, what do you think? Let's go ahead and just roll right into it this week and, start out with a little waterfowl news. All right, Dan, what do you got for me this week, bud?
All righty. We always talk about safety, and the news that I saw it all over Facebook and whatnot, but if you haven't heard it, a dog named Trigger shoots the owner during Indiana waterfowl hunt. And authorities say a northern Indiana woman is recovering after being shot in the foot by her dog. And the dog's name just happens to be Trigger, which is pretty ironic, but this 25-year-old laid her 12-gauge shotgun on the ground without the safety on during a waterfowl hunt, which is just a sin to start with. And the dog, Mr. Trigger there, stepped on the top of the shotgun and, it pulled the trigger. It says it shot Carter in the left foot at point-blank range and suffering injuries to her left foot and toes. She was treated at 2 hospitals and released. And that is just unreal that, I don't know, just you got to keep that in mind all the time.
I'm surprised Hillary Clinton hasn't picked that up and used that as more proof for quote unquote common sense gun laws, gun regulation. But yeah, that's wild. I mean, you see stories like that every now and again, and it just kind of baffles the mind. But just definitely keep in mind of that stuff when you guys are out there handling your firearms. So a little more waterfowl related for me this week. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has released a report that shows migratory bird harvest figures for the last couple of years, and as well as hunter participation numbers. And basically, it says that hunters have basically had good seasons the last couple of years, bagging. This is 2 years, as I believe, bagging roughly 13.3 million birds. Although that's down a little bit, about 500,000 from the previous survey. So the total numbers of waterfowl hunters, however, increased slightly to just over 1 million in 2014. So of the ducks that all those guys are harvesting, mallards accounted for 3.9 million of the total harvest. Green-winged teal were the second most common harvested duck, followed by gadwalls, blue-winged teal, and wood ducks. Give you one guess at the top state, Dan, that harvested the most ducks.
Arkansas.
Arkansas was number 2.
Really?
They harvested 1.2 million.
Well, I guess if you're
birds.
talking
I'll give you
about
one more crack at it. One more crack. What state?
Oh man, it's tough because if you say teal, did you say teal was the most taken?
Teal were the second most. Mallards were number 1.
Man, it's a shoot between Texas and North Dakota.
You're not far off. It was actually Louisiana, which I thought was surprising.
Well, that does surprise me a little bit.
So, I mean, it's obviously down there in the same area, but yeah, Louisiana was the top state, 1.9 million ducks harvested.
Or maybe that's what I was. I think what I was looking at is the most mallards taken is in Arkansas.
Yeah, it doesn't break it down quite like that, but I would guess that Arkansas is probably the number 1 seed there. But anyway, kind of goes to show it's always interesting. You see these bird surveys every year come out, and you talk about how great the fall flight's going to be and how many birds and how far above the long-term average they are and all that great stuff. And then you see the harvest numbers, and it's just a fraction, of those numbers. So, pretty cool. And actually, it reminds me, I don't have these numbers right in front of me. I wish I did, but, a couple of weeks back, I was fortunate enough, shot a couple banded wood ducks and got the band data back on one of them. It was banded literally a month prior before harvesting it. But when you do the band reporting and, then they send you back all the information, you're reading about it. I think it says like there's been over, 40 million birds or something crazy like that banded since they started tracking this. And only like 4 million of them have ever been reported. It's something like that. So I'm like, man, there's a lot of banded birds out there somewhere, or, a lot of people just aren't reporting them to some degree, which I'm sure happens to some degree. But, it's always wild to think about the total duck population numbers when compared to what we actually harvest as hunters. So, definitely interesting. And, that's some of the data that researchers and, biologists use to create seasons and limits and things like that. So all very important in the whole scope of things as far as we're concerned. But, anyway, that's this week's waterfowl news. And we'll go ahead and just roll right into the next segment, the Ask HP question of the week.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
All right, Dan, and this week's Ask HP question of the week is brought to you by Higdon Outdoors. Quality service innovation, that is Higdon Outdoors. Visit HigdonDecoys.com. All right, this question comes from our listeners group, and it wasn't really so much of a question per se, but we're going to kind of mold it a little bit for our purposes this week. And the question came up in the Facebook listeners group from Ronnie Lamb, and he had kind of I don't know, what do you call those things, Dan, where people
a meme?
A meme, okay. It was a meme of 2 chicks crying, and he asked if anyone could relate, and the meme says, don't cry, he'll be back after duck season. So really what we're kind of getting at is that, how do you deal with your wife, or your significant other at home when you're trying to be out in the duck blind and, they want you to be, spending time with them and doing all that kind of stuff. So tell me about it, Dan. How does one navigate this dilemma?
Well, I don't think we'll ever know for sure because I'm still trying to figure it out, after a couple days hunting.
Hey, here's a hint, Dan. Cut back on the deer hunting, bud. That's probably one way you could help out.
Well, either way, I mean, it's definitely a tread lightly. I mean, no matter how tough you want to be. I mean, when it comes down to making the wife happy, I mean, you have to go, the happy wife, happy life scenario. So, save up your brownie points in the off season, and even tread lightly and make sure you do your part during hunting season, because it could become very difficult if you don't do that.
I can tell you this right now. Growing up in Pennsylvania, Sunday hunting was not allowed. For the first maybe 5 or 6 years I've lived in Virginia, Sunday hunting was not allowed. Last year was the first year that they finally approved Sunday hunting, so we were able to do that. And I can tell you right now, if it was a panel of wives or significant others that sat on that board making that vote, Sunday hunting would never have passed in this state, because
no way.
My wife was not. We quickly learned that hunting Saturdays and Sundays was a little bit of a stress on our household and our son, taking care of him and all that kind of stuff. So my recommendation is space it out the best you can, even when it's in season, because when you get those, the right time of year, when you got a lot of heavy birds trafficking into your area, those are the days you really want to cash in all your points and make sure you're in the blind. September season, I think I went out twice this year. I went out once in our first split because, we had some things going on. So I'm totally building up brownie points in the bank to cash in come late December. And, I talk about how your duck season's going on right now and it's killing me, but in reality, it's actually a good thing because, we're killing ducks here almost to the end of January. And that month of January, as you know, when we go out to Maryland and stuff, is when it can get really good here. So I'm doing everything that I can to save up so I can hunt Saturdays and Sundays for the most part in January. But my wife's birthday is in January, so I've definitely got to keep that on the old radar. But trying to navigate it a little better this year, so I'll let you know how that works out and if it pays off. So anyway, that's this week's Ask HP Outdoors question of the week, brought to you by Higdon Outdoors. All right, we're gonna roll into our next segment, which I know Dan enjoys. I say that every week. I'm going to have to find something else to say to transition into this segment eventually. But it's our retriever training quick tip, brought to you by Barton Ramsey and Southern Oak Kennels. And let's go ahead and get the tip from Barton, and we'll catch it on the other side.
Hey guys, this is Barton Ramsey coming to you with your retriever training quick tip of the episode. And I want to talk this week about cold weather. I've been keeping up with the forecast in Montana. We're headed there in a few weeks, and it's starting to get pretty cold. Looking like next week we can expect some lows down in the teens. And just want to talk about what it looks like handling a dog in these temperatures. There are a lot of theories. There is a lot of thought that goes into handling a dog, especially in cold water. If you're hunting rivers, or if you're using ice eaters or breaking ice to hunt water. We do know that dogs have on a fur coat at all times, and that Labradors in particular are good at keeping themselves warm because of the oil in the first coat that they have. Labradors have a double coat, and so the oil that's in their coat does really well as far as wicking water off of their skin, and so they're able to stay mostly dry on their skin. This said, there are a few things I just want to start off cautioning against. If you're hunting and it's cold, and by cold I mean you're cold, or you would be cold if you didn't have on tons of good gear, and your dog is in a position to where he or she is going to have to stay in the water for extended periods of time, you're going to want to not do that. So Labradors who die of hypothermia typically are standing, even if it's 2 inches of water, standing or sitting in a spot where they can't get to dry ground. And so we highly recommend a Drake tree stand, or a Momarsh marsh stand, or an Avery marsh stand, something to get the dog up out of the water. So if a dog can't get dry, they can't warm themselves up. Secondly, we do recommend wearing a dog vest if the dog is going to be climbing out of ice, or if you're going to be hunting in a situation where the dog may injure itself on something underwater, such as a cypress slough with cypress knees. But we don't recommend wearing a dog vest just because it's cold. Dog vests are specifically useful for keeping a dog's belly from getting cut on the ice. But we found that our Labradors typically are pretty good at keeping themselves warm without the help of a vest. If your vest doesn't fit properly, then it is going to have the opposite effect. If the vest is not tight enough, then it's not going to work at all as far as keeping a dog warm. And so be sure that if you are using a dog vest that it fits. And we would just say to folks who have a dog in a vest all the time, it's really unnecessary, especially above freezing. It's not really going to help your dog. It may actually hinder your dog as far as being able to run properly. And so, just maybe personal preference on my part, we don't run them unless it's a good bit below freezing and they're going to encounter ice. If you notice your dog unable to stop shaking, your dog begins to get lethargic, your dog's gums begin to turn white, you're going to want to warm your dog very quickly. You're going to want to take your jacket off, cover your dog in your jacket, hold your dog, get to the truck, turn the heat on as quickly as possible, put your dog on the floorboard, rub on them, try to get them as warm as possible. Dogs can certainly die from hypothermia. The biggest thing for us is common sense. We have been in situations, I can think of 2 years ago, where I had Archie with me from Southern Oak Kennels, one of our stud dogs, and we're in a big blind, 14 guys shooting. We've got an ice heater that's been running all night, and everything is frozen about 2.5 inches except for our hole, and we were wearing ducks out. And after about 30 retrieves, I just looked at Archie and I thought, you know what? He's done a good job. He's not tired. He's acting fine, but he's got to be cold. It was about 11 degrees outside. And we shot a few birds, and it was a long way. Swim, then climb up on the ice, about a 100-yard walk on the ice. And I just said, you know what, guys, I think we're going to be done with Archie. Let him go in the blind, sit by the heater for at least 30 minutes, warm back up before we send him out again. Just common sense. You would hate to lose your dog at the expense of one duck. And so it's not worth it. Use common sense. At the same time, the flip side of that coin is our dogs are pretty rugged. They're pretty tough. You don't have to leave your dog outside all season long in order to develop an undercoat. However, if your dog spends no time outside and is not acclimated, he's going to struggle when the weather drops. And so we encourage you to get your dog outside. Right now, if the temperatures are dropping, continue training in water. Don't stop training in water. Train in water all the way until the water freezes, because you want your dog naturally, when the dog has that exposure, he's going to start growing his undercoat. And he's going to be more adequately prepared to face the cold this winter. And so keep your dogs as dry as you can. Keep them healthy. Keep them in good shape. And keep them warm. Use common sense. And let them retrieve your ducks. Hope you guys have enjoyed this tip. If you have any more questions, you can contact us. You can reach us at www.southernoakkennels.com. Or you can ask us questions on the HP Outdoors Facebook page. Thanks.
All right. We'd like to thank Barton for his contributions to the show. You can definitely check out Southern Oak Kennels online, on social media, all that good stuff. And, we appreciate Barton being a part of the show. Dan, I know that obviously I'm not the most qualified person to speak to the dog training, being that I don't have a hunting dog, but part of me wants to think that a lot of guys, don't necessarily understand, what to do, or as far as how is getting your dog ready for cold temperatures, particularly with the vest. I think part of it makes you, at least from my optic, it almost seems like I want to put the dog in a blind and the dog in a vest because it looks cool, makes your dog look a little harder, but there is a time and place when that's valuable and when it should be used, and maybe sometimes when it's not. So, I think, putting a little extra thought into that kind of thing, is probably a worthwhile effort.
Yeah. And I know, a lot of guys that hunt in swamps and whatnot, they won't ever put a vest on a dog because they could get tangled up, and that could just drown your dog if you can't make it out to them, or it's freezing cold water, and you just can't make it to them, and they get tangled, like I said, and end up drowning. So a lot of guys, if it's too cold and the dog's shivering off the stand, then it's too cold for them, and they won't take a dog out. But I just know in my household, there's no way that my dog would end up sleeping outside. So, most of the time she's on the bed with my wife. So that's kind of how we roll here. But, she still gets it done in the field, and I enjoyed having her.
Yeah, I don't think I could ever have a dog, that I put a lot of time, money, effort into training up and then just have sleep outside. But, you can make a nice kennel run and, have nice accommodations out there. So that works for a lot of guys too.
And it's a location thing,
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about making sure that the dog is taken care of. And, there are times when it gets super cold where you probably ought to bring them in. But, for the most part, you can make it comfortable for them outside as well. So more than one way to kind of go about that. But anyway.
I think last year,
go ahead.
Pittsburgh, I'm talking Pennsylvania local here, but Pittsburgh, anything, I think if it's under 40 degrees and you have an animal outside, you get cited for it. So if
40 degrees?
I'm thinking it was 40 degrees because if I remember, it was above freezing.
I mean, you're going to have people getting cited up there tonight, and it's still October. Yep. That's ridiculous. That's crazy. Wow. Anyway, well, that's this week's Retriever Training Quick Tip brought to you by Barton Ramsey and Southern Oak Kennels. All right, Dan, let's not waste any more time. We want to roll right into the main meat of the show this week. So let's not wait any longer, and let's get into our main topic of budget waterfowl hunting. So when we were planning out, kind of things that we wanted to cover on the show, budget waterfowl hunting was one that came to mind because there's a number of reasons. One, a lot of people that listen to this show are just getting started into waterfowl hunting and kind of look at all the gear and all the things that they see people using that, as almost an overwhelming thing to even comprehend on what do I need to get? And then you say, okay, I need to pick up some decoys. You go to the store, you look in Cabela's or whatever, and you see how much decoys cost, and you're like, my God, like I need 6 dozen full body honkers and, to kill a limited geese, and it's going to cost me how much? It seems almost like an impossible task to kind of tackle. So, we kind of thought that maybe it would be worthwhile to go through, some things that we've used to help us save a little bit of money, as well as things that we use just because it's, a better way of doing business, maybe, I mean, why overspend when you don't have to? And I think there's just a lot of ways that, some of the things that we're going to talk about today are, common sense that a lot of you guys probably do. There might be some things that are kind of far-fetched and you're like, well, I would never do that to save $5, but maybe it's a way that you can save. And then there's some other things that maybe you hadn't thought of that, could help you out. So I'm looking forward to this discussion. Dan, why don't you go ahead and get us started off?
I will start. And I think, you have all summer to think about it. You have all summer to do stuff. I think I'm going to start this little segment off with paint. And 2 things that you could do is painting your own boat. So if you wanted to save money and not buy a full camo boat, like myself, I ended up, sanding down and repainting my boat. I think it's pretty cool and it seems to work. And repainting decoys. And that's something, you say you look in magazines and see how much things cost. And, I just redid 9 floating honkers and what it cost me, maybe $12 in paint. So, if you go to a yard sale, and I mean, I'm sure that this is going to come up a lot, but a yard sale or auction or a pawn shop, there's a lot of people that might be turning that stuff in or might be ready to sell it. So that's a very, very quick and easy way to mount up a decoy rig.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to probably touch on some of these will probably overlap to some degree, but, I definitely agree that the DIY route is incredibly efficient as far as for your money. You can pick up an old beat up set of decoys and repaint them and make them look more than serviceable. And like you said, you're a couple dollars in. So, I mean, I know guys that will look, they'll go on Craigslist and they'll look for the oldest, most beat up mallard decoys that they can find for the cheapest price. And then they paint them into, bluebills or something like that. And they look awesome. And they throw them on a long line and they just hammer divers over them. It's literally that easy. Or you can buy, 6 bluebills from, take your pick of whatever decoy company and pay $60, $70 sometimes, for those 6 decoys. So definitely especially if you're getting started off, but even if you're just looking to build numbers or anything like that, going that route is super effective. And pretty much anytime you can do something DIY, do it for yourself, you're going to save money in the long run. So encourage you to do that whenever you can. But for me, the number one thing about budget waterfowl hunting is just that you got to have a budget. So you need to know, okay, I've got $300 to put into this endeavor. Like, what's most important to me and what do I need to kind of do? So, if you decide that I've got a turkey shotgun that I can use and, these kinds of things, but, I need to pick up a few decoys, maybe get a call and, a way to carry the decoys out to the field or something like that. I mean, you need to kind of think through it at a level as, this is the kind of money I have and how far can I make that go? So if you have $300 to spend on the waterfowl season and you've got all these things you're just getting started with doing, it's probably not wise to go out and buy a half a dozen or a dozen full body, fully flocked honker candidate decoys. That's probably not the best decision at that time to spend your money, because you still need some of these other fundamental things, that are less, that are, cheaper to buy, but they're still as important. They're still vital to it. So kind of set that budget and evaluate where you're at and what you need versus where you're at and what you'd like, or maybe what you want to be down the road. For me, I'll use an example, where I hunt, they're primarily water spots. I'm hunting ducks and geese over water, but I have been slowly over time, because I will hunt in fields on occasion, and I'll hunt fields a lot when I come up there with you, Dan. But I've been on over time slowly building my field spread, not because I had a bunch of field spots that I wanted to hunt, but it was because I knew someday I was going to get those field spots, whether knocking on doors or whatever. Someday those opportunities were going to come up, and I wanted to be able to have a spread so I could actually hunt them and take advantage of them when that day comes. So over the last, 5 years, 6 years, slowly buying field decoys. Recently I've switched more into buying the silhouette type decoys. So, I'm using what's cost effective to me and what I know works in the field, to help build that spread. So now if I get a field permission spot, I'm ready to go. I've got layout blinds, I've got full body decoys, I've got silhouettes, I've got everything I need to hunt that space effectively. But I did it over time, and I worked that into like my waterfowl budget for that period. So definitely an effective way to tackle it. If that's something that, you don't have $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 to just kind of go throw at it at one time, and you want to be a little more efficient with your funds.
And I like how you touched on patience, and there's so many times that you walk into a store and you're like, I gotta have that, and really you don't gotta have it, but you really want it. But looking through, I don't even want to know how many emails I get about current waterfowl deals. Just you name any of the big companies, and they're always sending emails, but
every single day, Max Prairie Wings, every single day.
40% off this, and then you'd have to scroll through 900 things to figure out what's 40% off. But if you can, like you said, patience, if you can wait, and if you know what you're looking for, I've scored on that multiple times. And another thing you mentioned was a call. Starting out with a call, I know so many people that if if they want $120 brand new call, you could start with a $10 to $15 Primos call and get the job done. If you practice, I guarantee you can sound better than a lot of people that I hear out on public land, with their brand new $120, $160 calls. So that's another thing. Wait until you're really good and you know exactly what you want in a call, and start with a cheap one and learn how to use it.
Yeah, if you're getting started, you definitely don't need to jump into an acrylic call if you don't want or don't have the budget. And quite frankly, you look at my lanyard right now, and I'm not a world champion caller by any stretch, but I've been hunting for a while, and I've got some nice goose calls that, are $100 or more, but you won't find an acrylic duck call on my lanyard right now. I'm literally just now starting to research into an acrylic duck call and which route I want to go. So for the past 5-6 years, and I probably won't end up buying one this season, to be truthful. So, I kill plenty of ducks with polycarbonate duck calls. It's not hard, to make that work for you. So, definitely agree with you there. But to get to the sales that you were talking about too, when you research online, there are tons of deals out there to be had. You just got to look for them. off-season sales, Rogers Sporting Goods. I mean, you can get everything at Rogers Sporting Goods pretty much at any time, $10, $15 cheaper than any of the competitors for whatever reason. A lot of times free shipping. Cabela's Bargain Cave. Occasionally you'll find, sets, set of 6, final approach decoys or something in there for a really, really good price. So, keeping your eyes out, sites like, Camo Fire and all that kind of stuff. Is that what that place is called, Dan? I get daily emails.
No,
from
yeah,
them too.
Camo Fire. Camo Fire, and then
Camo Fire.
the Sierra Trading Post. They,
Yeah.
as far as clothing, I haven't really looked at their waterfowl gear or if they even have any, but I mean, as far as base layers and things like that, Sierra Trading Post is a huge sale. Right.
And so, I mean, the patience piece of this, the doing your due diligence, all of that stuff is super critical if you're really trying to save money. I mean, for me, I agonize over a waterfowl purchase because and this is going to get to my next point, so I'll kind of preface it. I am a buy nice or buy twice believer. So I like to buy quality gear so that the day that it shows up in the mail, I'm not already disappointed with the product for whatever reason. And then I'm already looking to buy something different that's better, that meets my expectations. So I will save a little bit more money to buy the product that I want versus buy it, because I think I need it and then regret it or need to buy something different to meet my expectations. But, once you've identified what those products are, you can then start that search and look for places where it could go on sale. I mean, my goose call is a perfect example. I identified that I wanted a zinc naughty by nature, and I was watching and bam, all of a sudden one day they came across my email where Max was having a great deal on them, and I bought one right on the spot and saved almost $50 on that purchase. So it's all about timing and keeping your eyes open, but as hard as it is, really try to avoid the impulse purchase when you're at a Cabela's, you're at a Bass Pro, or you're at a one of the other stores, the many stores. Once you get there, it's really hard. You start playing with stuff and you're handling it. It's hard to not make impulse purchases. That's typically not real good for the bottom line if you're doing, impulse kind of buying.
I want to add one thing onto that. A lot of stores, which I haven't done this, but it can save you some money. If you open a credit card, you usually save like 10 to 25% on your initial purchase. And I always think about it, and then I'm like, you know what? If I had a credit card to Cabela's, it would just be ridiculous, and I don't know, I'd probably end up divorced with it. But I just seem to be waiting for something like a bigger purchase that I can really use that 10 to 25% off. So if that's, if you do buy a lot to get started, then that might be a way to go too, to save a little bit additional.
Yeah, I've thought about that too, because I thought about, man, if I bought a credit card with Cabela's where you get points as a reward, and then, I just buy my gas every month on that card and pay it off or whatever, I'm going to earn a bunch of points where I can get like essentially some free gear. But I'm not going to advocate anybody open up a credit card that they're not comfortable with. Credit cards can be a dangerous thing, but what Cabela's does do, and what I have taken advantage of, and I don't know if other places do this, I haven't seen it very often, but Cabela's does have a rewards account card. So you can sign up for something with them that's not the Visa or whatever credit card, but it's an awards card, so that you register with them, and then every time you make a purchase, you get points, you get a dollar amount, points value for everything that you buy, and then you can redeem those. So, I have been doing that, and it does accrue over time as you buy things, and I don't buy everything from Cabela's, but I do buy from there. Like I bought a new pair of waders this year from them, and, a couple other things recently. So,
yeah, I think
I'm accumulating points there.
A few other places do it. Dick's Sporting Goods does that. Field and Stream does it now, but it's definitely, you might as well sign up for it. I get $10 checks from Dick's all the time, and I don't barely shop there, so I don't know where those points are coming from.
Yeah, I used to get those a bunch from Dick's. I haven't bought a lot of stuff from Dick's lately, but back in my deer hunting days, I would buy a lot from there, and Yeah, they have it to the scorecard or whatever. So, if they have it, definitely sign up for it. It's basically free money that they're giving you back. Well, not free money, but it's your money that they're giving you back. So, definitely take advantage of that. Dan, you've already touched on it, but one of my things is sign up for the newsletters. Yeah, they can be really, really annoying. I wake up every morning to literally 3 emails. Usually it's one from like Camo Fire, it's one from Max Prairie Wings, and it's one from Roger Sporting Goods or something like that, telling me, or Cabela's, what kind of sales they got going on. But at least I gloss over them quickly just to kind of see what they have, especially if I've got something on my radar that I'm looking for. Because those can be really rare opportunities where you might get something on Camo Fire where it's a camo jacket or something that you've been in the market for, or something similar to what you've been in the market for, and they only have it in medium, right? But they have it at like 70% off. Well, if you're a medium, guess what, dude? You're in the chips, right? So it's worth looking over. If it's an opportunity for you to take advantage of something great.
Yeah, I think you make a great point there, and it never seems to have a larger XL in stock as the only one, but whatever. I think my next point or thought would be talk to people in the area. If you're in the South, for instance, and you're going to buy waders, you probably don't need the 1,200 gram thin slate, 5 thick waders. And you can save, just another way to save a little bit of money would be going with, something 400 milligram thin slate that, you might save 30 or 40 bucks rather than going really heavy when you don't need that extra weight. And that's also knowing, spending some time out in water situations and knowing how cold you actually get. I know that your feet don't get very cold compared to, some other people that we hunt with.
Yeah, I mean, I hunt, the coldest temperatures that I have exposure to with 600, 800 gram thin slates, the max I go. But, I know guys that need the 1,600 gram or their feet freeze to death. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of validity to knowing kind of that, being in tune to the type of gear that you need. And that's where I think, a mentor is critical, or, your local DU chapter, if you can get involved there and just kind of talk foul with people once in a while. I think that can go a really long way to helping you buy the right stuff, so you're not wasting a lot of your money on things that you may not need or may not ever need. Another thing that I want to circle back to really quickly about the whole online game that we talked about, and Rogers and Cabela's and Amazon Prime and all that kind of stuff, you should really strive to never, or rarely ever, pay for shipping from any of these companies. Shipping is one thing that just is so common to find it for free these days that I found I can actually buy sometimes a nicer product, pay a little bit more, but because the shipping's free, I still save in the long run. Or, for example, with Cabela's, they have some of these coupons where it's like $20 off 100 or $50 off a 250, and then they charge you shipping. But with that coupon, you recoup some money, and it actually works out to where you're getting more for what you would spend at a comparable amount another place. So doing those numbers and kind of crunching that down a little bit is important. But I think just straight up paying someone $15 to ship you a $12 item doesn't make sense, right? So I would avoid that kind of shipping at virtually all costs.
I know you just cringe when you see shipping, don't you?
I essentially don't
you
do
just
it.
Refuse.
I pretty much refuse.
You refuse to do it, no matter what it is.
But I will say this. I will say this. I recently purchased a new product, and I haven't used the product yet, and don't really want to go into it yet until I have the opportunity to do it, and then I'll talk about it on the show. But I bought this product from Cabela's, okay? And there was an accessory that comes with the product that Cabela's just had a package deal where it came with it. And that package itself was like $40 less than what I could buy the two things separately through the actual manufacturer's website. So I bought it from Cabela's, paid shipping, and still saved money from buying it directly from the company. And I got the rewards points because I have their little like customer card, thing that I signed up for. So like in that regard, it doesn't bother me because I still made out better. But if you want to pay me, want me to pay you $12 to ship me something that I could drive up the road to Gander Mountain and buy myself and drive home, I'm definitely not doing it.
That's how crazy is that, though, that they can sell it for cheaper than what it comes straight from the company with no middleman.
Well, I think that, that's some of the Cabela's historically is, at least in my experience, priced higher a little bit than Rogers Sporting Goods or some of these other companies. But on occasion, they will work deals with manufacturers directly where they buy in such volume, then they can, put things together in packages and say it's like an exclusive Cabela's or whatever, where the pricing is just a little bit more attractive and the company's willing to do it because Cabela's can move a significant amount of volume. They have that ability. So, I don't really care how it works out at the end of the day. As long as it saves me a little cash, sign me up.
All right. Next one. Well, this goes back to the do-it-yourself too, which I think that this is one of those where it seems like a lot of work to save $5, but making your own weights, if you're not into molding metals or anything like that, but, I was reading just putting some of the line into concrete into like a plastic cup, and then you can either break the plastic cup off or do what you need to do with it. But, making your own weights, you could save a little bit of money. I guess if you have extra powdered concrete laying around and want to mix it up and do your own thing, then go ahead.
I think waterfowl hunting in general leads people to be more DIY, oriented in things, because there's just so many different things that you need to do. That sometimes just out of necessity, he's like, well, I'm trying to hunt this weekend, but I don't have weights, so let me just see what I got around the house where I can make a few weights, kind of thing. I love that. You see it online all the time. People put out do yourself videos of things that they've made or motion decoys they've done, and that's just it's awesome. I mean, I think it's so cool that guys share that stuff, and it's just it benefits everyone, and you get some really cool ideas and see some neat things.
I'll tell you what, there is no better feeling than harvesting birds or whatever with something that you made with your hands, or did a do-it-yourself project and it actually worked. It's just a good feeling.
It is. It's definitely rewarding to know that, you did that on your own, saved yourself a little money, and still had as much success as you would have had with the more expensive stuff. So definitely awesome there. And, some guys aren't as mechanically inclined or don't have the time or whatever. So, it doesn't have to be big time DIY things, but like even small stuff, there was a while where I had a couple decoys and I didn't have weights for them and I was in a bind. So I literally just, dug through my toolbox and found the heaviest washers and bolts nuts that I could find, and just use those as my weights. And it got me through one hunt, and I was like, I'm going to end up buying, weights for these decoys when I get an opportunity. But, today they serve their purpose, and I didn't, end up running down to the, the dicks and overpaying for a, set of rig'ems or something like that, and I can able to wait a little bit more or purchase them through my preferred, vendor or whatever, so that I can, get the best price that's out there. So, definitely take a little bit of pride in that, for sure.
No doubt about it. And I think, one thing that I find kind of crazy, and I know there's some hardcores coming out with some new, pop-up blinds and stuff like that, but some of these blinds just seem really, really expensive to me. So, if you could make your own, not a layout blind, but just get some chicken wire or whatever kind of fence you got and make an A-frame out of it with some natural blind cover. I mean, that's just a ton of money that you're saving. I can't see, I don't know, some of these little blinds are like $400, and it's just, I can't see doing that.
I literally cannot fathom buying an A-frame blind from a manufacturer. I just don't get how that makes sense at all. I mean, literally, like you mentioned, you take chicken wire, you cut it to the length that you need, or snow fence or some, black snow fence or something like that. And you get all, you go to a spot where you can collect a bunch of natural vegetation, you zip tie it to the fence, you roll it up into like a bale, kind of like the stores do with their grass. And then you can move it around. And what we've done is we get those, I don't even know what they're called. I think I might have referenced these in the canoe hunting quick tip, but they're the green stakes they're the metal, but they're kind of like a spade, but then they have little hooks on the side of them. And you literally hammer several of those in to the ground, around where you want your blind to be. And then you hook the chicken wire to that fence, and then you just lean it in towards you a little bit, and you have an A-frame blind. If you sit on stools, it's like head height. So, I mean, it's literally an A-frame, goes up in 2 minutes, and you could make it in one day, putting some grass on it in the summertime. So it's, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's for sure, one that leaves, is a head scratcher for me. And I don't know about it.
Yeah. And I mean, you spend probably maybe $40 when it comes down to it. Maybe a little more if you're doing both sides, but like I said, $400, I can't see it. So, the next thing I'd say is, know your effective range of your weapon. And when I say that, I really mean
this one is huge.
This is a huge one. The difference between a 3.5-inch shell and a 3-inch shell, which we talked about at Federal Premium, did the research, 50% more recoil and a few more BBs in a 30-inch circle, and the price difference is just incredible. And you really, I mean, there's no more penetration in a 3-inch, and it just, if you want to do that to your shoulder, if you want to use a 3.5, if that's been handed to you, that's one thing. But if you're trying to be macho, then we can talk about that and the science that's behind it. But that's one way that you can, have some extra cash in your pocket, especially if you're hunting a lot.
Yeah, I mean, literally, if I ask you, hey, why do you shoot 3.5-inch shells? If you tell me it's because they don't make a 4-inch, I'll say, okay, like that's a legitimate reason. Like I'll take that. That's valid. If you say because my gun will shoot a 3.5 and I want to reach out there, great. I'll take that too. But what you're not going to be able to tell me is that it's because you're budget minded and you want to save money, because you're literally putting more money down your barrel every time you pull the trigger than I do, or than Dan does, because we only shoot 3-inch. So it's definitely in where if you find yourself thinking, man, I wish I had, a couple extra bucks to be able to do something, put some gas in the truck or whatever, take a look at your ammo. I mean, you're paying more for 3.5. There's no question about it. And 3-inch can be it can be plenty effective. And, I had actually written down, something to kind of go along with this, but, you said know your effective range. I mean, for me, don't sky bust. I mean, we talk about this all the time. Everybody likes to say, oh, these people down the water were sky busting me. I mean, I've never met someone that's like, yep, I'm a sky buster. That's me guy. I've never met that guy, but we all know that they're out there. So maybe all of us are a little bit guilty of it at times, but my point is, try to be aware of when you're shooting. And if they're not in range, you are literally just throwing money down the barrel. And if you're doing it with 3.5-inch, good Lord, you're just giving it away. So yeah, I mean, be a little more aware of the range that you're shooting at, and, literally value your ammo. I mean, I see these public areas where they limit the shells. You can only go in with 18 shells or whatever it is. I love that idea. I mean, I'm not a fan of regulation to that degree typically, but when you're talking about duck hunting, if you only got 18 shells or 16 shells in your pocket when you go to the blind, you're going to make sure that you make those count when you pull the trigger, right? So that's going to cut down on your sky busting. That's going to cut down on your, cripples and all, shooting at swings that you shouldn't be shooting at, all that kind of stuff. I mean, you're going to make a lot, better choice. So if you think in that mindset, even if you don't have an ammo restriction on how many you can take into the field, I think you'll end up being, further ahead down the road as far as, conserving your ammunition and making better choices when you're pulling the trigger.
Yeah, I also like that. I think, some of the goose blinds up here, you can only kill one goose and they allow you 6 shells. So still regulation, but a little more. I hope it doesn't take you 6 shells to kill one goose, but it might. But I have 2 more points on that. One would be practice shooting in the off season, and you can practice with the target loads that are super cheap. And 2 would be buying in bulk. It saves, depending what you're getting, you're going to save, $4 or $5 per box when you buy a case. So, just something else to save a couple bucks. But here's another one, and I can shoot this over.
Hold on before you move on from this real quick. Buying ammo by the case, if you're not doing it, you're doing it wrong. I want to take a minute to reinforce this. You need to do this, and here's why. So for me, I shoot Winchester Expert. I'm not shooting the most expensive shell on the shelf. It's probably the cheapest, as a matter of fact. But when I go to a store and I buy it per box off the shelf, I'm looking at somewhere between $13 and $15 per box of 25 shells. When I buy it online through Rogers Sporting Goods, $119 per case, free shipping, that breaks down to what, like $11, or whatever per box, $11, $12 per box. So I'm saving between, $3 and $4 per box. And that's 10 boxes that come in the case. So, that lasts quite a while, and it's a pretty good savings over the time. And if you say, well, I don't shoot that many shells, get a buddy, to go in with you and split the costs, and, or 2 buddies or 3 buddies or whatever it is. And, however you dice it up, you're going to save money. So it's just an easy way. It's free shipping. They will bring it to your house. You don't, unless you live in one of these, commie states that don't allow that kind of thing. But for the most part, most of us can get, ammo delivered right to your house, and it's free. So I literally can't think of a good reason to not do it unless you just aren't legally allowed to do it in your state.
Or if you plan on quitting, one of the two.
I mean, even then, you could turn around and sell it to your other hunting buddies that are going to still hunt and make $2 off a box, right? I mean, like literally, you can move it and make money doing that. So, I just don't see a good reason to not do it. So not only is it just being budget minded, it just makes good common sense to me, I think.
And I think, you mentioned another thing is, you could sell it to your buddy. Another way to save money would, if people that always like the newest and best and greatest, and ask them if they're ready to upgrade their decoys or upgrade their shotgun or whatever, and you can score a deal there too if they want a little extra cash towards a new purchase, if they won't be using their old stuff anymore. But I wanted to ask you, we don't have them around here, but maybe some areas like Virginia or Maryland or somewhere that have a lot of leases on areas, on land. Hunting a military base, how much do you pay, and how much are leases going for in that area? So, to utilize public land over private land and paying the large lease fees.
Yeah, this is one that I had to, maximizing your public opportunities. So for us, we have military bases down here that they're public, but they require a little bit more. You have to have a hunter safety certificate. You got to go through the vetting process to get on the base. You pay a small fee. I think the base that I hunt, I pay like $125 per year. That gets me into the lottery every week, and there's 30 blinds. So last season I hunted every single weekend, never didn't get drawn for a blind. And it's on an area that are, for anyone familiar with Virginia blind laws and other areas that have blind laws, they're very strict. You can't just go out in the water and hunt. Like that's not an option. So for the most part, if you don't have a licensed blind that you have access to, you're not going to hunt that area. So really it's the only opportunity in there. To lease a blind from somebody for the season might cost you $4,000, $5,000 because they're expecting you to break it up amongst, 4 or 5 buddies. So it gets very, very expensive. So the military bases are nice because it provides that extra little effort that you have to do to kind of get through the process. And then that'll turn enough people off to keep the pressure down a little bit. But just like anything else, there's public land that you can just pull up to tomorrow and hunt and have good hunts. You just got to know where it is, and you got to look for it. And then once you find it, you got to keep your mouth shut and not tell everybody and their brother where it's at, or you're going to have people hunting in your lap. But it can be done. But yeah, maximize your public opportunities. We recently asked a question in the listeners group about how many guys are hunting at least a portion of their time on public ground. And I would say 99% of the guys on there at least hunt at some point during the season on public ground, and many of them hunt exclusively on public ground. So, those guys are, they kind of know what I'm talking about as far as, how hard it can be to get on private ground and good private ground. And sometimes you're forced to hunt what you have available to you. But if there's a place that maybe they only offer blinds through a lottery or a drawing or a quota system or something like that, something that could be perceived by somebody to be just enough of a pain in the butt to not want to do it, that's where you need to be. Because if it can at least cut 2 or 3 guys out of the the line, that's 2 or 3 guys you don't have to deal with at 5 o'clock when you're out setting your decoys. So it's worth it to me. Last year I almost hunted exclusively on the military base. I liked it so much, and I'm going to do a lot of the same this year. So if you got those opportunities around you and you're not looking into them, you're definitely doing yourself a disservice.
I agree. And you're always going to have some lazy hunters that don't want to do that extra step or two, like you said. So even though, waterfowlers as a whole aren't very lazy, but, if you have to take an extra 2 steps than what you're used to, then like you said, it might deter them from doing that. So I have 2 more things here. I'll start with this one, which seems a little like I probably would never do it, but maybe I would consider doing it depending how much I hunt it. But consider co-owning a gun dog. And there are, some of these dogs do get really pricey. I don't know, you'd have to be a really good friend to share a dog with them. But, I could see that if you had a club or something like that, it could be the club's dog and, one main owner. I guess between 2 friends, maybe one could pay a little more and, the other one would keep it, or, however you want to work it out. But, if you want a really good gun dog, if you want to hunt dogs all the time, then that's a way to, lessen the price a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, dogs are expensive, especially if you're talking vet bills and food and training and all that kind of stuff. So it's money and time. But, I agree with you. There can be, maybe if you have a really tight knit group of friends to where you guys hunt all the time together. And again, this one for me is just kind of like, brainstorming here, just kind of throwing stuff off the wall. I don't know if any of it would ever stick, but let's say you got a group of 3 or 4 guys that you hunt with religiously, and you have an interest in buying a dog, and they're all interested in hunting with a dog. Maybe they'd be willing to contribute a little bit of cash towards the effort, but I think that's kind of a stretch, to be honest with you. For me, if you're getting into the dog game, you probably ought to look at it as, a family pet that I can take hunting with me, if you're being budget minded. If you're looking for a thoroughbred, like just bad hunting dog, you probably need to bring your checkbook with you, because that kind of dog, that caliber of dog, gets pretty pricey pretty quick.
Yeah, I can, some of these prices seem really, really high, even to what these dogs are able to do. So, but I read that one, I thought I'd throw it in there, and there's some of these points are really realistic, and some of them are not so realistic. I think that one's kind of on my really not realistic list.
Well,
but
but there's one other thing too, Dan, with this. Like, we're talking about things for guys, a lot of them that are, we're talking small budgets, right? Not a lot of discretionary income to be spending on hunting gear and equipment, and we want to get the most bang for our bucks. We're a lot of this discussion is focused around them, but maybe your budget every year is $5,000 on waterfowl stuff, and you have the income to do that. That doesn't mean that you still can't save $5 here, $10 here, $30 here if you can do it. You know what I mean? So, like, some of the principles or some of these techniques can be applied regardless of what your budget is. Maybe some of the ones that the dog, are going to be for the ones that have that bigger budget to start with. So, could come from that angle.
And I think my last one, make an initial investment into some meat processing equipment, and, make your own jerky, make your own sausage, your, breakfast sausage, whatever you're trying to go with, and, save on that cost as well. As, you could take it and get all the hot sticks made, but you're still you pay a little bit per pound, and that's just something that you can do yourself and make it exactly what you want. So, another kind of do it yourself, but there is a initial cost in that kind of equipment.
Yeah, making your own, processing your own meat is it's fun. It's super rewarding. I mean, when you've got jerky or something that people are just drooling over, it's really cool to just, know you made that, and, that's game that you harvested, and it does kind of build a bridge to some of those folks that are a little bit turned off by hunting or can't really see themselves eating wild game, that sort of thing. You can mend a lot of fences or, sort of form those bonds with people that may have not been as open to hunting before tasting how good, that animal can be when it's prepared correctly, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
so,
and you know what is in it, and you know that it is what you harvested. So, if it's, whether it be deer or waterfowl or whatever you're doing, it's always a little bit sketchy, especially in deer season when you go up first day of rifle or something and there's, 50 some deer laying there and you're wondering if you're actually going to get yours back or that one that might have been hit by a car. This is,
there's no chance you're getting your meat back.
There's a good, it's a good time to know that, you have the equipment, you can make your own stuff.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, I got a couple left here. I don't want to run too long on time here, so we'll kind of roll through these best we can. But getting back to some of the things we talked about with, stores and things like that, this is probably one that I would never do just because lack of time. But if you have the ability, get a part-time job at a sports store. Man, you can get great savings on different, gear and stuff as an employee. Some of these local stores, even if you work, a light load, you're not working many hours. If you're an employee and you get the discount, you can really take advantage of that. So I know there's people that do that, and definitely a great way to save a little cash if you get the opportunity.
I want to mention on that one because I went up to Field and Stream not too long ago, and I had some time to waste, so I took my daughters up and we were walking around, and they just like pointing at the bears and wolves and everything. So it was kind of fun, and big bucks. They say big bucks a lot. So I'm walking around and I have a Sitka jacket on, and the guy's like, "Man, I like your Sitka coat. I got one just like it." And I was like, "Oh, really?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Yeah, it's hanging up over there." And the price that he told me that he got it for just made my jaw hit the floor. I was like, "You son of a, you know what?" But he's like, "Yeah, man, make sure you get in here like January, February." He said this stuff is like 75% off, 80% off. And I was like, I wanted to see if he had a card, but or a phone number. I'd start texting him now. But yeah, so that's another thing. Once you get out of season, and like you said before, you can find some killer deals if you have enough patience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt. Another thing too, like this is for Sitka specifically, but if other companies do this, Sitka recently phased out their whitetail line and brought in a new elevated too. So the previous line, the forest camo, stores were liquidating their inventory of that to make room for the new stuff. And I mean, you could get deals on that stuff everywhere. So, and you even got guys that are, looking to upgrade to all the elevated 2 camo. So they're selling all their forest camo. I mean, guys are just moving that stuff for dirt cheap. So definitely great deals to be had on, in all that regard, but we've definitely pounded that to the ground here. So we've talked a lot about on the show about how you and I shoot number 2s from the opening day to the closing day of the season all year long. There's another good reason why we do this. It's the most cost-effective way to go. I don't have to have a stash of shells of number 4s for the early season, a stash of number 2s for the mid-season, a stash of double B for, geese in the late season. I buy one shell, I buy it in bulk, and I use it for everything. So for me, that's the most cost-effective way to do it. I don't have a bunch of extra shells sitting around that might, go a year without getting used because I only use that particular shell for ducks and all that kind of stuff. So if you can get comfortable doing it that way, I love it. I'll never shoot it any other way, but it's easier on the pocketbook to go that route as well.
I went to our local store the other day, local Walmart, which always has 3-inch number 2s, Winchester Expert. And there must be a lot of people listening to us in this local area because it was the first time ever. And I'm telling you, the shelves were well stocked with ammo, and there was no number 2 3-inch shells. And I was like, you have to be kidding me. And there were some number 3s on sale and stuff like that. I actually did buy a box of the 3-shot, but, because my bulk has not made it here yet. So, just thinking, but I was like, man, I don't know what's going on, but, there was double B, triple B, and there was some T-shot there, I believe. So, it's all in stock except the number 2. So I don't know if we're making a dent in that area or not, but it was the first time for me.
Yeah, I wonder if they've got something going on there, because I'm having the same problem here. The Dick's Sporting Goods, the Walmarts, I can't find a 3-inch number 2 expert in the 1500 or 1550 or whatever it is, feet per second load. I can find the 3s, I can find the 4s, but the 2s are just very difficult to find locally. And like I said, I don't typically buy it local, but it's nice to know, like, if I get in a pinch or whatever, I can swing by the store on the way home from work and pick one up. And I haven't been able to find it, so even more reason for me to get on, stay on the internet and keep it stocked through that regard. But, we've talked about this a little bit already with the ammo thing, but, sharing expenses with friends, this is a twofold deal here. So if you're hunting with your buddies and, they're spending a bunch of money on boats and decoys and stuff, do your part, to the amount that you can, do your part, because you're going out there to hunt over those decoys and stuff just as much as they are, but they're carrying all the costs in their pocket. So put yourself in that position. Let's say you're the one that's paying all the money for that. Pitch in where you can. Offer to buy lunch while you're in the blind. Offer to put some gas in the truck or in the boat. Do little things like that, because it benefits everybody when you can spread the wealth, share the costs, and make it a more enjoyable hunt. And so it drives a wedge between people. It can build a lot of animosity amongst a group when one person is handling a lot of the costs for things. So, definitely do your best, because, if it's you that's footing the bill, you're definitely going to want to have your friends helping you out. And I think that, I don't think you're out of line to ask for it. Hey man, can I get a 20 for the truck or for the boat? And if if he's a legitimate friend, he should understand that that's not an unreasonable expectation. Now, I'm sure there's a bunch out there that would have a problem with that, but for me, I think it's fair play. I don't know how you feel about that, Dan.
Yeah, I think if you're using all their stuff to have a successful hunt, and chip in wherever you can, like you said, I think that's a great point. And even if it's not in your budget, like we're talking about, but make it a part of it.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Okay, another thing for me, decoy bags. This might be the biggest racket in all of hunting. Look at some of these decoy bags out there, $60, $80. My God. This is, for me, the decoy bags are ridiculous. If you've got to worry about your decoys to the point where you have to put them in individually slotted, padded bags, make sure they're protected, handle with white glove care, you probably need to shop for a new decoy, because I throw all my decoys, my diver decoys particularly, I throw in the Ryobi outdoor leaf bags that I buy for $15 a piece up at Home Depot, and I can fit 24 divers in each one on the long lines, and I throw them out, I throw them in. They're foolproof. They can't tear, they can't rip. They just do what they're supposed to do for $15 a piece, and I have zero regrets using them. I throw my decoys in there. I beat the heck out of them. I've got decoys that are 4 or 5 years old that don't need paint touch-ups yet. So it can be done, and it should be done, in my opinion. And if you're having to spend $80, $90 or whatever for these bags, I just don't get it. If you got the room in your boat and you got the budget, that's great. I'm not saying anything that you can't do it that way, but for me, I just can't see myself spending that kind of money on decoy bags.
Plus, you don't have to pay for shipping if you go to your local Home Depot.
Got that right. And they fold down flat. So when you pull your decoys out, they fold down flat, they buckle shut, and it's like a little pancake that sits in the bottom of the boat. They're phenomenal. If you're not haven't heard of this, using them, all the forums is where I learned about it. It's just an awesome way to go, especially if you're hunting big diver rigs. We're hunting, we're hunting like 5-6 dozen decoys out of a canoe. And there's no other way to carry that many decoys out into the field or onto the water without them. So definitely an effective way. All right, I got one more point. So this one's going to be a little bit sort of kind of a little bit of a different way of thinking about things. So kind of work with me here. I think you need to evaluate yourself as a waterfowl hunter and realistically take a look at how much time you're going to be willing to put in time and effort into being waterfowl hunter. So if you're primarily a deer hunter and you just want to find a way to extend the season another month in January or something like that, buying a big rig of decoys and a duck boat and a duck shotgun and all this stuff might not be the wisest choice, for you and your money. You might be better off finding, doing research on a guide and booking 2 or 3 guided hunts, throughout the year or during a certain part of the year when you're looking to fill the time. Around here, you can go out to the Maryland Eastern Shore, book a day trip with somebody for between $150 and $250 per gun per day. So let's say you spend $175 a day, and you hunt 4 or 5 days a year. That might be a better use of your money when you're talking about, getting on prime spots, having big decoy spreads to hunt over, hunting with knowledgeable guys, trigger time, getting opportunities, all of those kind of things. It might be a better use of that money for you. So I think it's a personal decision to evaluate kind of where you want to go with that. But I think it's one that should be considered, if you're only going to be hunting a handful of times per year, might be worth looking into.
I think that's a great point, especially when you start talking about the boats and the big spreads and the trailers and all that goes along with it, the trucks to pull the trailers. It adds up. So, like you said, if you aren't fully committed, or if you just, it's a side game to you, then, treat it like that and don't go all in.
Yeah. I mean, to put it into perspective on why this is something I thought about was, I live about 2 hours from the Maryland Eastern Shore. So I can get up in the morning, drive to the Eastern Shore, hunt that day, and hunt and drive home. It's not the most pleasurable experience driving home, but, definitely done it a bunch. I looked into joining a hunt club up there, and they range between $800 to $1,000, depending on whatever it is for the season. And I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, there aren't enough Saturdays that I could hunt during the season for me to get up there and make that worth my time. Like, let's say I could get up there for 5 Saturdays, maybe over the course of a season. I could go with a guide, hunt his decoys, hunt his farms, hunt his boats, hunt all that kind of stuff, and spend the same or less amount of money. So for me, I'm like, yeah, it doesn't really make sense. I can't get up there. I can't get up there enough to utilize that, but I can get up there 5 times a year and have great hunts with guides that put me on prime spots, so like for me, that was a more better use of funds to go that route versus paying all the money to have the freedom to hunt 6 different farms and, that kind of thing. So, and
that's without the scouting, or you're listening to other guys in the club about the scouting. So
exactly. I mean, you're hunting with guys that do it every day. They make it for their living. And the good thing about it is, if you front $1,000 for a goose club or a duck club, and you realize that you don't like the guys, or you don't like the farms, or it's just not a good fit, you're out $1,000. You spend $150 or $200 and you go with a guide, and the guide's a prick, or you don't like how he treats you. You don't go back, and you go until you find someone that you like and you're happy with. It's a win. I mean, that's a good thing. You're helping guys stay in business who, do this for a living. It's just, definitely a thing that I think something that's, should be considered. I think a lot of guides and outfitters can get a bad rap because there are a bunch of, bad ones out there, but there's a lot of really good ones too. And if you haven't had the pleasure of hunting with a great guide, it's unfortunate, because once you do, you'll realize how much fun it can be. And, we've been fortunate enough to find a good one up on the Eastern Shore that we really like hunting with. And, we just have a blast every time we're there. So for me, that's all I got, man. I don't know if I sparked anything else for you while I was saying that, but that's pretty much what I got for budget waterfowl.
I think we had a lot of points, from do it yourself to not buying stuff to really, checking out your inner self and seeing what you actually need. So I think it was a good chat.
Yep. And if y'all out there listening, if you got ways that you save money, we'd love to hear them. Send them to us, info@hpoutdoors.com, or on social media. We share it with the rest of the group. And, we know how important it is, to be budget minded when you're getting into a sport like this. So any way that we can all save some money, we definitely are in favor of doing so. All right, Dan, we're at that time of the show where we're kind of shutting it down. You got anything else you want to add before we close it up?
Nothing random, and I know you probably will mention this, but DeLorme came out with their updated app, and it's the Earthmate Hunt app. And, we probably should have Ryan and Scott back on the show just so they can inform everyone of what exactly is updated with it, but the parcel information is now available. The game management units are now available, and I was playing around with it a little bit the other day, and it is sweet. So instead of finding dropping a waypoint on where a bunch of birds are, and then going back and finding who owns it and then making a call to them, I can find their name right then if I want to go up to the front door and talk to them. And surprisingly, this did shock me a little bit how updated their information is compared to even our county. Like I work a lot with maps and what I do on a daily basis, and I know how up to date different counties are in our area and how up to date the landowner information is, and it's not that updated. So the first thing I did was check into how updated the information is, and it is on. It's up to date. It is on top of it. So I was really impressed with it. If you guys haven't checked it out, definitely do so, and it'll save you a ton of time.
Yeah, it's literally this simple for me. I'm going to play a scenario here. Dan and I are both two different hunters, and we're scouting an area, and he goes up to the house and he says, "Hey, I'm just driving by and I'm curious if you let anybody hunt this farm." "No, we don't." "Okay, blah, blah, see you later." I pull up and I say, afternoon, Mr. Smith, which one do you think is going to resonate with that landowner more? The one that says, "Hey, do you, blah, blah, blah," or that walks up, refers to him by name, and can engage him that quickly, and catch his attention? That literally could be the difference on whether you get a yes or a no when you knock on that door. So having that in your hand, real time, on the road, invaluable. But there is a host of other features that this app has. It's truly great. We've been talking about it for a long time, and how we're fans of it. And it literally just got better. So definitely take the time to poke around that and see what you think. You can definitely use the HP Outdoors discount code. It is capitalized, all HP Outdoors, to get 10% off, or $10 off, I believe it is, the purchase of the Delorme app. So anything else you got, Dan?
I don't think so. I think that's my little tidbit. I was just super pumped about that, playing around, and I plan on walking my property lines just to see how close the lines actually are. So I'll report back next week on that.
Awesome. Well, we did want to take a moment to thank the other partners of this show that, at least in part make the show possible. Sitka Gear, Sport Ear. You can go to Sport Ear's website and use the HP Outdoors discount code to receive 10% off your purchases. Again, Delorme, you can use the HP Outdoors discount code there for $10 off the Earthraid app. That is all capital letters, HP Outdoors. Also, Big Owl Silhouette Decoys and Higdon Outdoors. So thank you to those companies for their support of our show. All right, that does it for the 45th episode of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast. We hope you guys enjoyed our talk about budget waterfowl hunting, and hopefully we can save you a little cash somewhere down the road. If you'd like to catch up with the past episodes of our show, you can do so on iTunes or at hpoutdoors.com, and we'll keep chugging along here as the season rolls on, and we look forward to seeing all the successful pictures that you guys have in the field. So get out there, hit them hard, share your success, and till next time, for Dan, I'm Josh. Take care.